Bangkok. Known as the Venice of the East, it is a maze of tiny canals called klongs that were once the main arteries of the city.
At one time, there were more than 1,000 klongs in Bangkok. Today, people say there are something like 250 of them.
The unplanned, eccentric growth of the city has made getting from point A to point B in this chaotic hub quite an adventure.
The city was built, and then the plans were made.
The trick to beat the incredibly dense traffic: use every mode of transport available, from primitive to ultra-modern. Tuk-tuk, bicycle, boat, taxi, SkyTrain.
This is about 11 years old now, and it's completely changed the city.
These hyperactive streets pulse with life. Immense markets are everywhere. But even more abundant are the tens of thousands of street food stands, open day and night.
Bangkok is the eating city. There's always something interesting nearby.
Try that. It's one of the most delicious fruits in the world.
Isn't that nice? And any conversation in Thailand will usually gravitate toward the subject of food.
Underneath Bangkok's frantic exterior lies a deep spirituality. And the number of temples here? Well, no one really knows. What's most striking about Bangkok is definitely its size. The city is so massive, sometimes even the locals seem lost. Philip Cornwell Smith, author of the fascinating book Very Thai, offers to show me firsthand just how complicated it is to get around. We're going from his home to his office. On a map, the distance is just a few kilometers. But the reality is a whole different story. Here we go.
So how do you get to work? You take the
Well, there's
motorcycle
different
and then the
ways. It's all
SkyTrain?
a combination. Usually the quickest way is to take as many more forms of transport as possible.
That's the quickest way.
That's the quickest way, because you know all the little shortcuts in the city well.
How many modes of transportation do you take to get to work?
I'll walk to the end of my street, and then I'll get this motorcycle rank like this. I think we'll go via the SkyTrain 3 stops down the line, and walk a little bit down onto the canal, go on a canal boat, then from there get another transport, maybe road taxi or tuk-tuk or something, to my office.
The city seems very difficult to figure out as far as getting from one location to another. Even the tuk-tuk driver needed to see the map. Is that common for the locals to not know their way around?
I think Southeast Asia's not good with maps. It's just not a mapping culture. They're better with landmarks and interpersonal kind of direction. The streets all used to look identical when I got here 16 years ago. So now we've got a few more landmarks because they tend to be stepped back a bit, and you can start to see big buildings and say, oh, it's near that tower or something like that. Just coming up to the SkyTrain. This is about 10 years, 11 years old now, and it's completely changed the city.
How long did it take to build the SkyTrain?
Oh, too long.
Inaugurated in 1999, the SkyTrain was built to relieve the city's congestion and pollution. Each train replaces about 800 cars. 500,000 people use the SkyTrain each day. But even with that, public transport has its issues.
Are we getting off here?
We are, yeah. The problem in Thailand is that organisations don't tend to talk to one another, particularly not when they're planning. And there's these sort of jealous fiefdoms between different kinds of transport. So you'd find the subway doesn't actually connect with the BTS. They sort of come close, but it's sort of one will be above ground, one will be below ground. And they come close, but not close enough. And the end result is that all the time saved travelling on the fast line is then wasted getting between the two stops. Now, when they built the SkyTrain, they figured this is for middle-class people. And they priced it in a way that wasn't particularly accessible for the average working person. So the express boat we're going to go on is probably for a lower income bracket than the SkyTrain. And also, it's coincide with the SkyTrains very well either, because the bus ride is definitely lower economic bracket. This is the really inconvenient connection between the BTS and a canal boat. So we're going to go back across the canal here over this bridge. The amulets all supposedly have a power, so the genuineness ultimately is about the spell that's attached to it and not the object itself. They believe that different amulets will give you different powers and different benefits. So some might bring money, some might bring health, some might bring attraction, sexual attraction, they could bring power, very often protection. Some people would call it superstition, other people would call it a talisman that gives you confidence. Saturday is the Buddha meditating under the protection of a naga, which is a bit like a dragon snake. Don't get any on you. It's really very dirty water. I would say it's a little bit cleaner than it used to be. But when they closed off a lot of the canals to make roads, that had the effect of blocking a lot of the canals that remain, so they don't flush out very well. And at certain times of year when they're trying to avoid flooding, the water gates come up and they can't flush out. Over a century ago, the old town used to stop here. There's a canal, like where we just got off on that boat. That was the city moat. And there's a big avenue going down that road, which leads to the Grand Palace.
This picture needs a little explaining. Bangkok is covered from head to toe with photos of the royal family. Even though they are not actively involved in the country's politics, they remain an important part of Thailand's identity.
The King's birthday is Thai Father's Day, the Queen's birthday is Thai Mother's Day, and so on. Here is very much viewed that the King is the father of the country, and his wife, the Queen, is the mother of the country. They extend the family idea towards the whole state apparatus.
And there's no direct way of getting somewhere that's very close.
Well, the Thai main philosophy is indirectness, so it's actually very natural to Thais to go the long way around.
Our route is so complex with detours that I almost forgot where we were going.
This is going to become a monk's begging bowl. The monks aren't allowed to prepare their own food, that they receive food from the community who put it into the bowl. The tuk-tuk was originally a Japanese invention. Many countries have got tuk-tuks, but the one in Thailand looks so much better than all the other ones. I mean,
It's just adorable.
And what they've done really is take this pretty ugly motorized rickshaw and then give it these really elegant lines. And you can see, if you put a tuk-tuk next to the old rice barges or next to an old buffalo cart, you'll see that it actually has got the same lines, the same grace. So it's got a certain something about from traditional Thai art and design. They like to make everything very bright and shiny and pretty to look at. So all the flashing lights, and also the tuk-tuks are very coloured. And you might see on the back of the tuk-tuk, it says the word Thailand, right? Before the economic crash in 1997, it didn't have the word Thailand on the back. It used to have words like Daihatsu. Well, that's the Japanese maker of the brand. And then they got very nationalistic after the economic crash. And the tuk-tuk was presented as being a very Thai national icon. So they put the words Thailand on the back in the national colours of red and blue.
6 modes of transportation later, we finally arrive at our destination.
Welcome to Wangjakapong.
Beautiful.
Here is the river with the sun setting behind the Temple of Dawn, if that makes sense.
Stunning. Can you show me on a map how we got here?
Yeah, sure. I live here, and I walked up to my little street, and then I caught the motorcycle up to the top of the soi. And then we got on the SkyTrain here. And then we got off here, and then we took the canal boat along this canal all the way to here. We walked down this street here to the Monk's Bowl village. And from there, we got a tuk-tuk and came down to this spot here. And we're facing Waterfront, which is directly across the river.
The difficulties in getting around stem from the lack of any kind of city planning. To understand why this is so, I tour a small part of the city with architect Eric Bogdan.
What's interesting about Bangkok is the mix of influences from everywhere in the world. This approach to architecture was established here at the beginning of the 20th century. It started from a Chinese base. Then the modern elements were imported by the local architects who studied outside the country. When they came back, they brought with them elements from the countries in which they studied, and made this mix, which was adapted for the Thai climate and needs.
If Bangkok was a smaller city, the lack of organization wouldn't be so dramatic. But spreading over 1,500 square kilometers, it's amazing this metropolis continues to evolve so rapidly.
Urban planners usually draw up cities and then build them. Here, it was the other way around. The city was built, and then the plans were made.
Even with a detailed map, Bangkok is a maze. The plan for urban development was established far too late. And in a city of 12 million people, change happens slowly.
We're in the first real business sector, where the first high-rises like these were built. What's funny is that everywhere between these huge towers, we can still find mom-and-pop shops and little shacks like these. As you can see, the contrast is phenomenal between the little two-story houses and what's behind them, gigantic buildings. This big one is a hotel. Over there, we have a shopping center. Right in front of them, we have the SkyTrain. It's just a bit of everything. Someone once said to me that Bangkok without the electrical cables just wouldn't be Bangkok.
In Bangkok, putting in a new electrical cable doesn't mean you remove the old ones. Tangled knots like these are everywhere. Most of these cables aren't in use, and the problem is, no one knows which is which. I guess it's part of the city's charm.
We can't say it's an aesthetic city, but the charm of Bangkok is just that, the contrast and mix of old and new. People will eventually stop living in little houses. They'll gradually move to large residential towers.
With so many people, land prices have shot upwards. And so has the housing itself. The city is growing upwards. But as the city was built on an improvised urban plan, it now faces a slew of efficiency and infrastructure issues.
If you want to turn left and you miss your opportunity, you may have to go as far as 3, 4, even 5 kilometers before you find another chance. It's strange for a large city. And that's one of the major issues of Bangkok. There aren't enough streets. We have the main arteries that were constructed to get from point A to point B. In between those, it's every man for himself. In the past, when someone bought a large plot of land and divided it to sell in smaller pieces, there were no streets built in that lot. So the sois are often built by the owners in order to give access to the lots they wanted to sell. Often these sois are dead ends. They don't lead anywhere. They simply give an access. Sois are basically alleys, perpendicular to the main avenues. They're generally more calm and residential. If we compare Bangkok today to what it was 15 or 20 years ago, there's been quite a progress in terms of cleanliness. It's nothing major, but everything takes so long here because the city is so dense. There's still so much to do. We have to tackle problems one at a time and manage the urgent matters first. We also have to start building in a more structured way.
Although Bangkok's commercial port is 30 kilometers from its center, the heart of the city is where business and culture thrive. The Chao Phraya is the third largest river in Thailand, but it is the most important economically. Because of its position on the water, the immense port city of Bangkok never stops growing.
As the city grew and people moved north towards the 5 affluents that formed the Chao Phraya, canals were created to drain the fertile land and to make paddy fields. That's how Thailand became the rice granary of Southeast Asia. The main commercial activity, the touristic things to see, it all happens here on the Chao Phraya. The river is vital to the city, like an artery. But the Klongs is where life happens for many people who've lived here for centuries. A Klong is a canal. Some are natural because we are close to the sea, which created them, but most have been created or connected by man to make alleys with water. By building the Klongs, it became easy to have access to vegetables, fruits, and meat. People were protected from others, from armies, who couldn't come into the Klongs. There were the tides and too many complicated passages to go through. And so, a culture of the Klongs was invented, with agriculture and fisheries. Unfortunately, you can't see it now because the pollution got in the way. At one time, there were more than 1,000 Klongs in Bangkok. Today, people say there are something like 250 of them.
But the water that brings Bangkok its vitality also brings it difficulties. The waterfronts are deteriorating due to climate change, tidal erosion, and the over-farming of rice. Bangkok was actually built on a swamp, and the city is sinking 2 inches each year.
Some say Bangkok will be flooded in 30 to 70 years. Could be 100, who knows? In a 2007 OECD report, it was mentioned that Bangkok was number 7 on a list of seaport cities at risk of sinking, in a total of 150 cities found to be at risk. Now we're entering the Klongs. It's greener and much more quiet. Very few people move here nowadays. Those who live here are mostly old families or are children of those who have always lived here. These places are complicated to get to. You need a boat, and you always get lost in the Klongs. People here have always rented the land from the Department of Religion. I hear they pay very little. Either they have plantations of fruits, vegetables, or orchids, or they run a little shop or restaurant. There's a neighborhood life in the Klongs.
These quiet little houses can only be accessed in 2 ways: on a boat, through winding waterways, or by a matrix of tiny alleys inaccessible to all but the smallest vehicles.
Getting here without a boat would take hours, and we already lose so much time with transportation in Bangkok. Many people have told me they would like to have a little house in the Klongs, but they've dropped the idea because it's just too complicated.
The Klongs are picturesque and romantic, but they're in rough shape. Many houses are held up by these wooden supports. Their constant exposure to water is causing them to rot and collapse.
Aujourd'hui, le grand problème de ces maisons, c'est que les gens qui habitent n'ont pas forcément les moyens. The problem today with these houses is that those who live in them can't really afford to maintain them. They try to save the foundations. Concrete is one way like this. This is an active passage, so the wood probably deteriorated more quickly. Concrete stilts have been added, but concrete is more expensive than wood. The reason these houses are tilting isn't strictly due to the wood's bad condition, but also because the clay on which Bangkok is built is sinking.
Alors, il y a un effet qu'on appelle l'effet ciseau, c'est-à-dire que Bangkok est en train de se...
There is something called the scissor effect. The water comes up from the Chao Phraya and the sea, and the foundations of the city go down the other way.
Un affaissement du sol de Bangkok. Alors, ça arrange rien, c'est pour ça qu'on appelle ça l'effet du ciseau.
These boats are called long-tail boats because, well, They have long tails. The propeller spins just below the surface, allowing for excellent maneuverability in these tiny and sometimes very shallow canals.
Look at this here, great example. The water level has risen over the course of a few years. This used to be land, and now it's an intersection on the water. And this here is a floating plantation.
From the modern steel and concrete jungle that is Bangkok, this place is quite a contrast.
This house here, just in front. 5 people sleep in that house, and they love it. I've asked some of these people if they'd like to move, and they say, no, we're comfortable here. They have peace and quiet. It's like they're living in a miniature city. The Thais are very gadgety. They like small things. Small business, small jobs, small food, tiny flowers for a small temple. And they have all these little docks to get to the tiny houses, miniature. And in the middle of it, some major houses have been built with the investment of rich families who think that one day Bangkok will be the Venice of Asia.
En pensant qu'un jour, et ça c'est clairement défini, que Bangkok va devenir la Venise de l'Asie.
There are twice as many canals winding through Bangkok as there are in Venice. Venice, 160, Bangkok, 250. Anywhere else in the world, these strikingly beautiful homes would cost a fortune. Not here. The klongs, with their hidden gems, are traditionally home to lower-income families. This is the first, and possibly the last time, that I eat a mango I picked myself.
You'll often see sois like this, very small. They're the back alleys of the klongs, used as parking lots for the villagers' boats. And you have a bunch of villages like this all over the place.
It's easy to forget, but we're in the middle of a massive metropolis. Throughout these klongs, we find hundreds of village neighborhoods like this one.
C'est un peu le renouveau de certains canaux, c'est-à-dire qu'ils sont en train de faire des pontons un peu comme on les voit là sur les bords.
Some canals are being revitalized. They're building floating docks like the ones we see ahead. People who live in these old shop houses can now start businesses and open their doors to others. With the docks, you can go pick up food in one place, something else in the other. It's very dynamic, and it's creating a social life out here.
Ça redynamise un petit peu la vie sociale et commerçante.
Here, in these tranquil hidden canals, we find countless temples, reminding us that spirituality is ever present in Bangkok. Bangkok has quite the buzz, but the locals are very calm and respectful. This is due in part to the fact that 95% of the people here are Buddhist. Influenced by folk beliefs and Chinese religion, Thailand's Buddhism has its own unique expression. There's a range of beliefs and spiritual philosophies here: Hinduism, black magic, animism, Buddhism. But this doesn't lead to tension. In fact, religions and social classes of all types happily coexist. People respect each other and are non-judgmental. I get the impression that in this environment of tolerance, people are less frustrated. And to pray, everyone goes to the temple. Walk 10 steps in any direction in Bangkok, and you can find one. and no one really knows how many there are. Some say thousands, others say tens of thousands. Worship is such an important part of life here that some families gather money over many generations to build new ones. To understand the importance of spirituality in everyday life, I managed to enlist the help of Marcy, a local who was able to get me inside one of the temples.
How many Buddhist temples are there in Bangkok?
Uncountable. The Buddhists, we believe that if you can afford to build a temple or anything for the temple, it will bring you good deeds. You might be reborn as somebody better. So we like to do some donation or anything related to the temple. We're willing to do it.
Is the temple very dependent on donations?
Very much. Like they're not allowed to cook their own food. So every morning they have to go out and ask it from people. In the morning, people before they go to work, you can buy ready-made food from the market and offer it to the monk. To give is like to release your greed. If you can give more, then you will be refrained from being greedy.
I'm very surprised to see that most of the monks here are children.
So they wash their own robe and they do clean the temples and everything.
So who decides at such a young age that they become monks?
Their parents. Often they said, okay, they have a summer holiday. Let's send them, instead of playing around at home, let's train them.
To do something useful. What's the best part of being a monk?
เป็นเนรนี่คิดว่าช่วงไหนที่เป็นว่าดีที่สุดของการเป็นเนรนะช่วงที่ he said when he's doing the prayer or because when you're doing the prayer you make good deed because he doesn't want to go to hell.
Can you tell them keep up the good work?
เขาบอกให้ทำต่อไปก็อาบน้ำต่อไปด้วย That's the bell to call the monks to come for praying.
Marcy invites me and my camera crew to a gathering, honoring her grandmother, who passed away 50 days earlier.
The whole table is for my grandmother. Those are the food that in the old day we offer to people. So you see, we have some other tiny Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
So we have new and modern and old thing.
When the Thai people aren't exercising their inner calmness, they can usually be found at the bustling markets. Every city has its markets, I know, but here they've taken the concept to new levels of excitement. Markets for anything and everything, everywhere, at any time of day and night. If you look hard enough, you can even find a market specifically for flower offerings, open only in the evenings, only on weekends. I meet up with Angelique Sago, an artisan jeweler that has found a niche for herself in the local markets.
Thai people love the market life. Everything is outside here because it's nice and warm all year. They live together and they eat at all times of day and night. Markets are good for that. Right now, we're in the Chatuchak market, the largest market in Thailand. I don't know how many stands are here, but something like 10 or 15,000, and it's divided into sections by specialty. We're in the clothing design section, so we could find an independent local creator with a little store selling wholesale as well as retail. Buyers from everywhere in the world come here, so you can sell 1,000 or 10,000 or even 20,000 of anything.
What I've learned is that in Bangkok, the markets are where it all happens. Bartering, browsing, arguing, they are simply the center of life. In this one, more than 200,000 people come to purchase everything and anything.
I think you can find just about anything. Every time I come, I find something new. You can buy animals, textiles, antiques, jewelry. And there are many artists. Painters, sculptors, ceramists. Many of those who have stands here on Saturdays and Sundays have stands elsewhere in Bangkok during the week. There are no price tags anywhere. Very Thai. Very Asian. They'll give you a price, usually high, and then it's a game to try and get the price to go down. These are incense cones. 35 baht per pack, and wholesale is 30 baht. She's giving us the wholesale price. What's great is to stop for a massage if you find one. There should be one in the arts section. Actually, they're everywhere. It's a cultural thing. There we go. We don't always go for a full body massage that lasts an hour. You can just stop in a little place like this one. We're getting a foot massage, but they can do shoulders or anything else. This feels pretty good. And that's how you make it through the day here.
Like Finland's saunas or Iceland's geothermal pools, Bangkok also has a local obsession. The massage. They're everywhere. On just about every street corner, $6, and you're set for an hour. Maybe Buddhism isn't the only reason people are more relaxed here.
It's part of daily life. Any occasion is good for a massage. You can even see the taxi drivers when they're waiting. Two men, they'll massage each other's shoulders. It's all about feeling good. People don't wait until they're sick. They just want to be relaxed and happy.
Of all the markets in Bangkok, the most famous is the floating market. Paradise on earth. Vendors come by boat to sell their goods directly on the water.
Everything here is in the canals. The merchants come here on their boats with their goods, directly on the water. They do everything in there. They even cook. Quite impressive. Look at the size of the wok.
Street food is the true soul of Bangkok. For many, like author and food critic Robert Halliday, it is the reason he came to Bangkok and the reason he never left.
So you can eat everywhere, anywhere, any time of day in Bangkok.
Oh yeah, Bangkok is the eating city. You know, there's always something interesting nearby. And any conversation in Thailand will usually gravitate toward the subject of food. In Thailand, there's so many street foods. You must have noticed walking around town. You know, there are grilled foods and there are noodles of all different types, fruits that have been cut up and prepared, different cookies and things like that.
What is it about Thai food that you love so much?
Oh, that's hard to say. First of all, I think it's just so diverse. There's so many different kinds of dishes. I also like the fact that Thais have a way of blending what seems to be flavors you wouldn't normally associate with each other and coming up with these wonderful things. So you'll have cookies that are made from dried fish, and you have dishes that look like they should be sweet, but they're actually very spicy and peppery. Even after all these years, I still have dishes prepared sometimes that completely surprise me with the way the flavors mesh. You know, flavors that seem to have very little to do with each other, but they combine to make something delicious.
Like rice and mango for dessert?
Yeah, sticky rice and mango. Who thought of that? But it's perfect. Just imagination. You know, no two people prepare even the most popular dishes in the same way at all. You can get a curry made in somebody's home and have it made in somebody else's home and have it made in a restaurant, and it'll be three different dishes. I mean, the character will still be there, but each person will interpret it in a different way. And I like the flexibility, the range of Thai food. It's an art. And for me, it's the greatest of the Thai arts.
Bob takes me to Ataka Market, one of Thailand's most important food hubs.
What makes this market different than other markets around the world?
From around the world, I don't know, because there may be other countries that have equivalent markets, but from other markets in Thailand, it's just that the quality of everything available here is very good. It's very difficult to buy something here that's not good, you know, and especially fresh things, vegetables, fruits. It's the best of the best. And, of course, you pay for it. Look at these dried chilies. All different types. Different types of garlic.
What are these?
That's durian, the notorious fruit. Give it a sniff. It has a very strong smell.
Actually, I heard that you stayed in Thailand because they had durian here.
There were a couple of times where I was considering returning home, and then I thought, oh, I'll just wait out one more durian season. And by the time the season was over, I'd changed my mind.
How do you say delicious in Thai?
Alloy.
Haloi?
Alloy.
Haloi.
That's a mangosteen. Have you tasted that?
No.
You see these little things on the bottom here? It looks like a flower.
Yeah.
If you open it up, there will be white sections, the same number of them as there are petals on this little flower.
Fantastic.
Very sweet, very juicy. Try that.
Okay.
It's one of the most delicious fruits in the world. Isn't that nice?
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Awesome.
Okay. Blue food. You don't see it every day.
Blue food.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's made from a flower called Roganchan that's blue in color, and they just use it to color these. It's a sweet paste made from sticky rice. But I always think that there are so few opportunities to eat blue food that one should jump at every chance.
Street food is such a big part of life here in Bangkok. How did it develop?
I think originally there were small shops that served very simple dishes for Chinese workers, because there was a big influx of Chinese workers in the 19th century and afterwards. Noodle dishes and things like that for them. But bit by bit, the culture of street food spread. It keeps expanding, getting more elaborate, getting more expensive. If you ever work in a Thai office, you'll be amazed at the amount of food that passes through it in the course of the day. If somebody goes out, they'll bring back packages of food, sometimes some little grilled meatballs or kind of sweet things that everybody munches on. And they don't eat in great quantity, but it's just a little something tasty to beguile the tedium of the day. You know? People think rice is rice, but look at this. So many different kinds of rice and grades of it, different species.
So after 40 years, you figured this all out?
I'm still learning about rice. It says Khao Hom Mali Blang Phi, which means jasmine rice harvested in the middle of the year. Yasothon is the name of the province it comes from. Hak Piset, selected, specially selected. Hom, fragrant. Nim, soft. Alloy, delicious. This one here is made from a plant It's a morning glory-like plant, yeah. And pork belly meat, coconut cream, chili paste.
Oh, the colors are just amazing. Oh, yeah.
What a way to end the day. Bob's favorite restaurant. He says it's one of the best in the world. Coming from a food critic that's written for the New York Times, it's high praise. But between you and I, the place has a decidedly low-key ambiance. In a place where the crowd is out of this world, the kitchen is in the alley.
The food here is very authentic. Things that should be hot are hot, but she uses the best ingredients there are. Where do you see the size of the prawns that she puts in our food? And
It's so unassuming.
yeah, it is. It looks very simple.
You would never notice it if you were driving by.
But in Thailand, the best restaurants, the ones where even the wealthiest people go to eat, are places like this where the food is really good and decor is not the first priority. The places that are on the Sukhumvit Road and that are very well decorated, the food is beautifully presented, but it doesn't have the soul that it has in a place like this, where I think Jepai is an artist.
How many restaurants are there in Bangkok?
I have no idea. I reviewed restaurants here for 20 years, went every week, and sometimes to a number because I wrote for a lot of guidebooks, tourist guidebooks and travelers guidebooks too, and went every week to a number of restaurants, and I feel I just began to dent the surface. And they come and go. There's very much of a Darwinian mechanism here, that restaurants that aren't really good, they don't last long because there are so many good ones around.
The most chaotic and densely populated on our long tour of seaport cities, Bangkok is also the most human. Markets, street food stands, and temples. A mixture that is both sane and comforting. The city's millions of inhabitants bustle around day and night in a profoundly cohesive manner. Getting lost in Bangkok is like being lost in a secret paradise, an alternate reality that has little to do with life in the Western world. I like being lost in Bangkok, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.